Hello, hello, hello. So I would like to make a comparison between the MK party in South Africa and fascism. I want to investigate whether it's a fascist party or not. The reason I'm doing this is I suspect they are, but I can't just, use my own intuition alone. I need to verify that with facts and some background information to say whether they are not fascistic at all, whether they're socialist, whether they're nationalistic, or just the run-of-the-mill centrist party. Let's have a look. Introduction. The year 2023 saw the political re-emergence of Jacob Zuma, former president of South Africa and longtime leader of the African National Congress, under the banner of a newly formed political vehicle, the Umkhonto we Sizwe, or MK party. So MK, or Umkhonto we Sizwe, is shorthand for Spear of the Nation, which was the name of the armed hand, or the armed wing of the ANC during the struggle years of South Africa. And they, basically they're still part of the ANC, but now there's this parallel organization called the MK Party, which is like now Jacob Zuma's party. And Jacob Zuma, if you don't know who Jacob Zuma is, I'll give you a short intro. Jacob Zuma, I'm not even going to call him president. Let's call him President Jacob Zuma. He is, if I say Jacob Zuma from now on, just add president in front of it in case people think I disrespect him. But he's a very controversial person. A lot of people have sued him. The government has sued him for everything ranging from corruption to perjury, to violation of women. And he's kind of like a sticky character. He's not a good amigo. So that is basically Jacob Zuma, very manipulative as well, but very charismatic and highly intelligent, and is loved by his followers. He's seen as a liberation figure. He is seen by his followers as someone who's always honest, and he's almost seen as a father figure or a great leader. So that's how his followers see him. Essentially, the MK party in the last election, the 2024 election, they gained 15% of the vote, making them the third largest party in the country. So it's almost okay. They're not in government, but like if the dice were thrown slightly differently in the election, they may have been the kingmaker at least. What happened was the people got very disillusioned with the ruling party, the ANC, which at one stage, in one election, past election, they got 66% of the vote, or 67% actually, enabling them to change the constitution, which they didn't. Kudos to the ANC. But people just got disillusioned with the ANC as their rule has led to the general deterioration of the country in several areas. So people left the ANC and went straight to this MK party, and very few analysts saw it coming. I know Dr. Frans Cronje saw it coming, that people will vote for this guy. I think Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Welsh also saw it coming, simply because people love Zuma, and they got very disillusioned with the ANC. And people in that sphere, in that area, the left wing or the African black nationalist wing, they were not going to vote for the right-leaning white opposition, because it's just not logical if that is who you are. So that's who Jacob Zuma is, and the MK party. So, named after the ANC's former military wing, the modern MK Party has no official ties to the original Liberation Army, but it has rapidly gained ground, politically and symbolically, by invoking that legacy. Formed in opposition to the ruling ANC leadership and its constitutional institutions, the MK Party has grown from an ad hoc protest group into a formally registered political party, contesting the 2024 general election and polling strongly in key provinces like KwaZulu-Natal. So, a lot of most of MK's supporters are people from the Zulu tribe or the Zulu nation. And Jacob Zuma is from the Zulu nation, so essentially that's like an additional pulling factor. Jacob Zuma, in the 90s, there was a Zulu party called the Inkatha Freedom Party, and they were at war with the ANC. The Inkatha Freedom Party also had some backing from the national apartheid government or the National Party. And they, sorry, I don't know if you can hear, there's a lot of drilling around there, like renovating my building. But in any case, so Jacob Zuma was, when he was then part of the ANC, and as Jacob Zuma is a Zulu himself, he brokered a peace between the Inkatha Freedom Party and the ANC. That's why he became so popular. But he was popular already, since he was like this figure, and because of his intelligence and charisma, who could move between these structures easily, and people would listen to him. Also, incidentally, he used to be the head of the intelligence service for the ANC. So, very smart guy. You could move over the border as he wished. The apartheid government could never catch him. It's like they caught Nelson Mandela. They assassinated Stephen Biko, and some of the apartheid government supporters murdered Chris Hani. But Jacob Zuma just got away. Like always, he just slipped through their fingers. So that, without any, with almost no education, just like primary school education, he's a very smart person, and he also has some ties with the Zulu royal house, in the sense that he respects them and they respect him. And a lot of Zulus are very conservative and royalists. So they the key first figure is the king. So if you have the ear of the king, then you can move people as well. So basically, a lot of the people then left. The leaders of the ANC left the ANC to form this MK party, and then they contested the 2024 election, and KwaZulu-Natal, being the Zulu province, got most of the vote, but also in Mpumalanga, where there's also some Zulus, they also did very well there. But it's also, I need to mention that the MK party is not a Zulu party alone. There's like many other people voted for the MK party. So it can't be classified as a pure like Zulu party. We'll get into like their stance shortly. But that's that for now. So as it gained momentum, questions arose. What kind of political movement is the MK party? Does it represent a radical democratic correction to the ANC's misrule, or is it something more dangerous? An emergent populist movement with the authoritarian leanings? We're going to argue that while the MK party represents itself as a libertarian continuity project, its leadership's a liberation continuity project, its leadership behavior, rhetorical strategies, mass mobilization, and attitude towards the judiciary and the constitution suggest strong parallels with global fascist movements. So the reason I basically making this video is that the MK party is almost like parallel with the MAGA movement in the United States, these far-right movements in Europe, that, you know, it is populist. People got fed up with the way governments rule countries in this new age of AI and technology, global warming, deglobalization. So it's like, it's not just South Africa. Like everywhere, actually South Africa did pretty well in terms of not going totally populist. The ANC still won the election. They got 40%, but they got the most votes of all the parties. And the second biggest party, the DA, got, 20% or something? So essentially, like, yeah, the good guys, the centrist parties got about 75% of the vote, and the rest, like the Freedom Front Plus, MK party, and the EFF, which seems to be proto-fascist, they got the other 25%. So if you meet a South African, or if you meet 4 South Africans, 3 will be centrists and 1 will be a populist. I'm not demonizing populist people. I'm just saying that a lot of the things they believe in is impractical, and some of it is hateful, period. I'm going to use Robert Paxton, Umberto Eco, and Stanley Payne, the same as the other videos, to make a definition of fascism, and then we will do the comparison of MK's behavior with regards to this definitions. So, post-imperial, post-revolutionary, or transitionary democracies can fall prey to fascism, and this analysis will focus on the party's cult of leadership centered around Jacob Zuma, the rhetoric of national betrayal and rebirth, the hostility to liberal democratic institutions, particularly the courts, the mobilization of disinformation, grievance, and conspiracy, and its early stage authoritarian behaviors. By situating the MK party within a comparative global context, this essay claims to assess whether it represents a localized form of post-liberation authoritarianism, populism, with fascism characteristics. Yeah, so basically Twitter, for example, or formerly Twitter, now X, they had a lot of bots giving impetus to this MK party, because the MK party mobilized itself very quickly and did very, very well in the election. Like going from 0 to 15% is, in South African politics, is basically unheard of. This is like probably from that angle is the most successful, if not the most, the most successful party in South African political history. Okay, that's a tangent. Let's go back into the definition of fascism. So, fascism, as understood by political theorists, is not merely a synonym for authoritarianism or racism, nor is it confined to historical Europe. It's best described as a political syndrome, a recognizable set of behaviors, institutions, and cultural myths that may reappear in different societies under conditions of economic distress, institutional decay, and national humiliation. So you see, these things, they can occur on any continent because it's the same human traits. And it's the same like situation in which many governments or countries can find themselves in. So Robert Paxton's behavioral definition. In the Anatomy of Fascism, 2004, Robert Paxton defines fascism as a form of political behavior marked by obsessive preoccupation with community decline, humiliation, or victimhood, and by compensatory cults of unity, energy, and purity. In fascism, a mass-based party of nationalist militants working in uneasy collaboration with traditional elites abandon democratic liberties and pursues preemptive violence and expansion. Key behaviors Paxton identifies includes a myth of national rebirth after a period of betrayal and decline, a cult of authoritarian leadership, disdain for democratic institutions, scapegoating of enemies, both internal and external, emphasis on mass emotion and political spectacle, and an embrace of action, confrontation, and militarism. So this is not all of them, it's just the most important ones. Umberto Eco's Ur-fascism, I don't know how to pronounce that actually. It's you are fascism. So Ur-fascism, your fascism, or you are fascism. I guess it's Ur-fascism. Eco outlines 14 features of what he calls eternal fascism, including a cult of tradition, fear of difference, appeal to a frustrated middle class, selective populism, the belief that life is permanent war, and a disdain for intellectualism and critical reasoning. These traits can emerge in a variety of regimes, including democracies, long before full dictatorship arises. Pain and Sternal, nationalism, mass mobilization, and anti-liberalism. Stanley Pave and Zeev Sternhell emphasized the fascism focus on nationalist revolution with socialism, militarization of politics, a synthesis of myth, mass emotion, and pseudo-religious faith, rejection of liberal pluralism, and enlightened values. Fascist movements do not begin as totalitarian regimes, they evolve through stages: victimhood, mobilization, disruption, and consolidation of power. The MK Party. Number 3, the MK Party. Origins, structure, and political identity. 3.1, the founding and political context. The MK Party was officially registered with South Africa's Independent Electoral Commission, or IEC, in late 2023, with Jacob Zuma emerging as its de facto leader by December. The party was created amid growing discontent with the ANC, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, and following Zuma's protracted legal battles, including his 2021 imprisonment for contempt of the Constitutional Court, which sparked deadly riots that killed over 350 people, his defiance of electoral rules, barring candidates with criminal convictions from standing for public office, Electoral Act, Section 47, his repeated claims that the judiciary is captured and against the people. So, yeah, riots for me are always interesting in the sense that I believe these are like massive catalysts for political change. So we had they were called the July riots, where the 350 people were killed. I prefer calling them the hunger riots, because it's just the general decay of South Africa at the time of this video. Hopefully this video ages badly in the sense that South Africa will become rich and prosperous, and the wealth, at least that they won't be poor people. Okay, I'm not like a socialist, but you shouldn't have poverty in a country. It's just not how it works, especially dire poverty, because that's what South Africa has. And this is essentially why MK has risen the way it has. It's because of this dire poverty. And with the July riots, two things. Firstly, it was instigated by the MK Party. Like currently there's lawsuits and stuff going on. Or definitely it seemed that it was being instigated, because there was like a lot of Twitter bots going on and off about where to congregate, what to do, these kinds of things, at what time to be there. So it seemed that the riots was very instigated, organized. But there was also a lot of common people, normal people, who like just saw what's happening and they went with it, because like the riots was more looting. Okay, like maybe I should have used the word looting more often in the last couple of seconds, but yeah, they looted supermarkets, wholesalers, whatever. There was like a lot of looting, but during this looting, people got killed, either by accident, by each other, or by the police. And a lot of it was kind of brutal. I believe the police could have handled it in a better way. There was a place, what was it? This place in Durban called Chatsworth, and a lot of people, is Chatsworth in Johannesburg? I'm not sure, but it was like a specific lower middle class community in Durban. They used guns and they just shot the looters on sight, with very little warning. And some of them were essentially captured by the police, and charged by the police, and they're currently in prison, actually. So Zuma claimed the ANC had betrayed the liberation movement and that the MK party would restore the revolution, invoking the name of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the ANC's armed wing during apartheid, a move seen as both strategic and symbolically provocative. By early 2024, political polling indicated that the MK party had overtaken the ANC in some areas in KwaZulu-Natal, mobilizing disaffected youth, former liberation veterans, and populist rural networks. So basically, so South Africa follows the so-called revolution theology, where we came from apartheid, we came from fascism, and then the opposite of that is the revolution, where everything is supposed to change or be overturned. And the Umkhonto we Sizwe's main argument, and actually it's an argument of many South Africans, is that the ANC didn't develop the country like they should have, and they definitely didn't share any wealth. In fact, they stole the wealth that was there, and they let a lot of stuff decay. So a lot of South Africans would argue, righteously so, that, let's say, we did absolutely not do the same as a country like China or Vietnam, where they basically had a successful revolution, and the country changed for the better. We are somewhere in between, let's say, Vietnam and Venezuela. Vietnam, I will view as relatively successful. Vietnam in Venezuela is a total disaster. South Africa isn't a total disaster yet, but there has to be upliftment of poor people, or else there will be friction in future. 3.2 Leadership and cult of personality. The party's identity is inextricably tied to Jacob Zuma. Despite being legally disqualified from serving in parliament, Zuma appeared on MK party materials, he led its rallies and dictated its direction. His rhetoric centers around a myth of betrayal, the ANC sold out to the revolution, a personal vendetta, the judiciary, media, and civil society are conspiring against him, and a messianic promise. Zuma is the only one who can restore justice. This reflects what scholars call the charismatic authoritarian syndrome, where a movement is built entirely around the leader's personality, history, and grievances. Zuma has been referred to as the father of the nation at MK rallies. His image dominates party regalia. The party's public narrative is indistinguishable from Zuma's personal legal struggle, blurring the line between collective platform and individual revenge. So it's quite interesting. I guess regalia and posters and stuff, clothing, especially in South Africa, that's part of, a lot of people will just call it politics, but there is a strong sense of fascism or cult of personality with regards to it. Kim Jong-un in North Korea, why does your face have to appear everywhere? It's very narcissistic, if I I don't know what it'll be to lead a political party, but I would tell people please, minimize my face and stuff. Let it appear enough for marketing purposes, but don't create a cult of personality, because for me, a cult of personality is very fickle, in the sense that if something happens unless you're a psychopath and you love being the center of a narcissist and you love being the center of attention at every occasion, cult of personality is very fickle. So unless there's a very clear, determined line of succession, like in North Korea, the thing can unwind itself very quickly. So, like, for example, in Venezuela, there's a cult of personality around, there used to be because he passed away, around Hugo Chavez. And now there's one again around Nicolas Maduro as well. I saw this cartoon the other day called Super Bigote. That's Spanish for super mustache. And it basically shows Nicolas Maduro fighting evil capitalist forces. But the fact of the matter is, like, the Hugo Chavez, like, cult of personality was not transferable to Maduro. So Nicolas Maduro, basically, that's why Venezuela is suffering so much right now. It started going downhill on certain metrics with Hugo Chavez, although other metrics went up. Like, let's say, certain cost of living, you could get free fuel, stuff like that, similar to Cuba. But then when Maduro took over, some people say, okay, it's the oil prices, but I disagree. I just say here is a less competent leader who's basically in control of the country, and now the cult of personality is no longer working. So maybe it's a good thing that MK or Jacob Zuma is using this cult of personality, and once he is gone, and he's a very old man, he's obese as well, that the party would, like, not necessarily disintegrate, like, but that they would grow weak, or at least less fascistic or proto-fascistic. I'm not saying, we're still determining whether they're fascistic or not, but let's go on. So we have the cult of personality here. 3.3, rhetoric and messaging. The MK party communicates in a style that is, 1, emotionally charged, anti-institutional and conspiratorial, complete with anti-elite, anti-judiciary and anti-media sentiments, presented as a continuation of the liberation struggle, even though it primarily represents a split from Zuma's expulsion from the ANC. Yeah, one of the most annoying things about them is, and it's the same with the Freedom Front Plus, it's the same with the EFF, it's the same with AfriForum, is this belief in conspiracies. And if you confront them with the fact, they get all irritated, like, how dare you, like, confront us about this is true, but there is no evidence for this absurd conspiracies that they're peddling. In the case of MK, and it's the same with EFF, the entire country is ruled by so-called white monopoly capital. But guess what? White monopoly capital was something designed by a UK marketing agency called Bell Pottinger, and they were requisitioned by Jacob Zuma himself. So, they created the conspiracy theory, and then people lashed onto it. Now, it's very different to say that, let's say, the majority of the wealth is concentrated in white hands. And actually, one day I want to just do more research on where the wealth lies in South Africa. But the fact of the matter is, white people don't congregate secretly 12 o'clock at night wearing purple gowns, in a candlelit room, talking about how they're going to screw the country over. That's absolute nonsense. And, if you disagree with me, fine, but prove it. So, 3.4, early electoral strategy and mobilization. In the 2024 elections, the MK party built alliances with former ANC branches in KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng. They leveraged Zuma's existing rural networks and traditional authorities, promoting slogans like "Save the Revolution" and "Zuma is the solution." Hold mass rallies in Zuma strongholds where institutions like the courts were denounced as enemies of the people. Campaign events featured uniformed cadres, ex-military figures, and choreographed chanting. This mirrors early fascist movements' use of mass spectacle and militarized identity to build legitimacy and loyalty. So yeah, why the uniforms? Why do you have to wear uniforms at a political rally? Now, I know some people will say, oh, because of tradition. I'm like, bullshit. You have a military uniform for one reason, and that is to create like an image of unity. But if this military uniform is a camouflaged uniform, why do you want a camouflaged uniform? Are you a doomsday prepper, or do you plan to do something more sinister, like basically go to the bush and like have a terrorist fight? So as soon as I see someone in camouflage, I'm suspicious. Like, unless it's an official soldier, unless I'm hiking in the French countryside and like the French army or the French special forces are doing an exercise nearby, okay, probably they won't see them because they will be wearing camouflage. But that's one thing. But like, if you're not the state, if you're not the government or the army, and you're officially doing a sanctioned exercise that's legal and everything, then you're you're looking for trouble. So now for the fun part, we're going to do the comparison of like Payne's, Eco, and Zeev's like characteristics of fascism and how they tie in with the MK party. I'm very excited. Like I had the same I had the same level of excitement when I did it with AfriForum and EFF, the EFF. So 4.1, the myth of national betrayal and rebirth. Fascism is often grounded in a narrative of national betrayal, followed by a promise of rebirth. Paxton identified this as fascism's core emotional drive, redemption after humiliation. The MK Party presents post-1994 South Africa not as liberated, but as a nation still in captivity, governed by elites who sold out the liberation. In MK rhetoric, the ANC is accused of abandoning the revolution. The constitution is framed as protecting white capital. Zuma is portrayed as a torchbearer of true liberation that was never completed. The infrequent invocation of Umkhonto we Sizwe as a historical symbol of armed resistance adds to the party's revolutionary rebirth narrative. At the December 2023 Nkandla rally, Zuma declared, "The struggle is not over. The enemy has changed uniform, but it still rules." Now, look, no one can deny the negative effect that apartheid had again in South Africa. No one can deny that it was a crime against humanity. But if you say something like the Constitution is framed as protecting white capital, you have to prove it. And the South African Constitution, if you go and compare it to other constitutions globally, so let's for a moment forget that the South African Constitution only applies to South Africa. Let's compare it to, let's say, what should be a constitution. Let's compare it to, let's say, the Brazilian Constitution, or the British Constitution, or the Chinese Constitution, or the Egyptian Constitution, whatever. Is it a good constitution, yes or no? Is it a constitution that abides by international law? Is it a constitution that is generally ethical? And that's how we measure the constitution. Now, it is like recognized internationally. And in South Africa, that South Africa is one of the best constitutions in the world. So it's very disingenuous of Jacob Zuma and the MK party to say that the constitution protects white capital. That's just not true. In fact, there is constitutionally, you have like the triple BE, broad-based black economic empowerment. You have affirmative action, and you have like there is the ability to confiscate land if it's in the interest of the country. This seems to be like more socialist than neoliberal. So I can categorically say that the South African constitution is definitely not neoliberal. Like it is not. Like we can do it. We can like someday like make a look at the South African. Okay, it'll be very long because it's a constitution, it's a set of laws, but basically see what is like the policies of the constitution. What kind of is it like? An anarchist constitution, a libertarian constitution, a socialist constitution, a new capitalist constitution, a Marxist constitution, a neoliberal constitution. We can have a look, and maybe some parts will be like socialist or Marxist even. Maybe some parts will be anarchist, like for example, you can smoke marijuana. Some parts you may say is neoliberal, but we will have a look. But this is just make claims like the MK party does is super disingenuous. So strong alignment with fascist narratives of betrayal and rebirth. So this is something they just want to destroy, the constitution. Next, 4.2, cult of leadership and personal rule. Fascist movements often revolve around a single leader who embodies the will of the nation, like Hitler's Führerprinzip and Mussolini's Il Duce. Leadership is personal, emotional, and non-negotiable. The MK party is built entirely around Jacob Zuma, despite 1. His legal ineligibility to stand for office, 2. His criminal conviction of contempt for the Constitutional Court, and 3. The lack of substantial policy platforms beyond defending Zuma's record. Zuma dictates MK party positions, speaks on its behalf, and dominates its visual and rhetorical identity. MK campaign events feature chants of Zuma is the way, Zuma is the truth, and Zuma never lies. Zuma never lies. That is malarkey. Zuma lies a lot. Actually, this is another, like, this is my sense, my 2 cents, or my idea, my theory that there's also a hallmark of fascism. They lie, and they lie a lot. Like whether it's MAGA, whether it's this MK party, whether it's Putin's Russia, they lie. It's like very if they're smart, like Putin's Russia, then they will embed the lie in a grain of truth. So you don't realize it immediately. The Russians are really smart people, like and the KGB, which is now the SSF or whatever, I don't know, but like they are smart, and well, they still lie, but like MAGA and the MK party, they're just stupid. Like, and I say this because it's so easy to patently prove what they say is lies. So yeah, here a strong alignment with fascist-style leadership cults. Next, 4.3, scapegoating of enemies and conspiratorial thinking. Fascist movements identify internal enemies, Jews, communists, liberals, or minorities to explain national decline. The MK party frequently claims Zuma is the victim of a judicial conspiracy. The Constitutional Court is captured and acts on behalf of white capital. Media is funded by agents of imperialism. Civil society groups, for example, Defend Our Democracy or the Helen Suzman Foundation, are foreign puppets. So once again, all of this is a bunch of nonsense. Like conspiracies, fine. If you want to say there's a judicial conspiracy, prove it. Prove to me that like you have some papers, some documents, some recorded phone calls of judges conspiring to basically do someone in the courts. The word, when they say the Constitutional Court is captured, in South African English, we use the word captured as a means of saying that something has been taken over. And like not colonialized, just like that ownership has changed. And to say that of the Constitutional Court, go and investigate. It's very easy to do it. You can go and investigate the judges of the Constitutional Court and have a look at their lives. And then you can come and say, okay, they are captured or they're not captured. And the MK party can't do this because it's impossible. And this is why they'll just make some blunt statement and throw in a few poetry verses around it to make it seem like it's a correct statement, but it's malarkey. So these narratives are used to delegitimize every independent institution that challenges Zuma's authority. They are not grounded in legal rebuttal, but in a conspiracy theory and emotional appeal, a hallmark of fascist scapegoating. Strong alignment on this one. 4.4, hostility to liberal democracy and constitutionalism. I just want to say, look, I understand if people are upset with liberal democracy. I think in many instances, I'm not going to say it doesn't work. In some instances, it works, like Iceland. I love Iceland. But Iceland or Finland, it works. Japan, it works. So I'm not going to say, because Francis Fukuyama was wrong. You can't just, it's not the solution to each and every society. If you look at Vietnam or China or Russia, some African countries, some Latin American countries, they are not, they have a different way of solving problems, governing themselves, and living and doing their economy and stuff like that, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, and that's where Francis Fukuyama got it wrong. He just thought, okay, when when the Cold War is over, everyone will become liberal democracies and there'll be no more war. That's wrong. So basically. Yeah, I can understand that people are not a fan of liberal democracy because it's the idea comes from Francis Fukuyama, and it seems that the West, white countries are foisting it upon the rest of the world, and that may be true, or it is true. If you look at Iraq, people thought okay, let's invade Iraq and everything will be dandy because now there'll be a democracy. Obviously, it didn't work. It didn't work in Afghanistan either. So, I understand where it comes from. Fascism sees liberal democracy as weak, decadent, and corrupt. While fascist movements may use elections to undermine judicial independence, constitutional checks, and media freedom, Zuma's defiance of the Constitutional Court's 2021 order to appear before the Zondo Commission, followed by his imprisonment and refusal to acknowledge the judicial authority, is one of the most direct attacks in South Africa's legal system in the democratic era. In 2023 to 2024, Zuma claimed that the courts are against the people, failed legal actions or to delay or undermine the IEC Independent Electoral Commission's rulings barring his candidacy. He publicly stated that the people's will is above the Constitution. This openly challenges the foundation and principle of constitutional supremacy, a clear indicator of fascist behavior in democratic systems. So, Zuma employs what we call in South Africa the Stalingrad strategy, where he just litigates left, right, and center. It doesn't work because he's in the wrong just all of the time. Not almost. He's in the wrong all the time. But you can litigate in South Africa. We are a democracy, but the litigation takes time. It's not Canada, Well, even in Canada, a country like Canada, like litigation will take a long time. But you can imagine then in South Africa, it takes even longer. So for him, to move his date of imprisonment forward, and he will go to prison if he's alive by then. The only way of him escaping prison is if he falls sick. If he falls sick, then he will escape prison, because that's how South Africa works. If you're too sick to sit in prison, South Africans, the government doesn't care. You'll go free. So Zuma probably knows this because he's smart. He knows he doesn't have like another 30 years left of his life. Maybe he has, but I doubt it. Like, if you look at the man, he looks like he's going to die from a heart attack. So he's pushing, like, for the thing, for example, one of them is the arms deal fiasco. The arms deal was when South Africa wanted to buy weapons from, I think, Sweden, Germany, and France. We were like certain weapon systems, and basically the tendering like process where you have to put in a proposal to buy was basically captured, or it was like interfered with using corruption. So essentially he got away, with using a lot of money. So in one instance he was charged, I think, was it 50 times? I don't know, but he was charged like with corruption with 50 charges, because every time an amount of money, like coming from Shabir Sheikh, that was his co-conspirator, came into his account, that counts under South African law as one charge. So, like, rather maybe they should have gotten the arms company to pay all of the money into his account one shot, and then he would have had only one charge. But he has so many charges against him. It's just simply not funny. So basically, this battle against the courts, strong alignment with fascism. Next, 4.5, militarism and symbolism. Fascist movements often adopt militaristic aesthetics and draw legitimacy from past military glory. Uniforms, marches, salutes, and revolutionary symbolism are often used to create unity and awe. The MK party invokes the name of the defunct armed wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe, hosts rallies with uniformed ex-combatants, especially MK veterans, uses military metaphors, war for justice, our last battle, brands critics as traitors to the movement. In 2024, MK-affiliated veterans began appearing in campaign videos in combat fatigues, pledging loyalty to Zuma and threatening a second revolution. While not yet organized as a militia, this militarized political cultural mirrors early fascist squad behavior. So the only they wear this, like the uniforms and stuff, or basically the combat fatigues rather. I have never seen them in uniform actually, not like the uniforms they'll wear on parades in countries. Like, they wear camouflage, which is alarming, but there is no proof. There's zero proof that they're actually training, up. There's no proof that they're going to shooting ranges. There's no proof that they're doing fitness or doing strategic exercises in the bush somewhere. So here we can only say there's a partial alignment, moving towards a strong alignment. But we can't slander them in terms of, they're definitely not planning a coup d'etat. So we also need to be circumspect with regards to this. 4.6, mass mobilization and spectacle. Fascist movements thrive on emotional mass mobilization, rallies, public displays, mass chants, and leader-centered rituals. MK rallies often include marching veterans chanting slogans like "Zuma is the way," coordinating flag displays and uniforms referencing liberation in iconography. Anti-judiciary songs and symbolic burning of court orders. In January 2024, thousands of supporters marched in the Pietermaritzburg following the court ruling against Zuma Zuma, waving MK party flags and chanting the law is not above the people. This performance of mass loyalty, framed in emotion, anti-institutional language, aligns closely with fascist use of spectacle. Strong alignment there, strong alignment. Economic 4.7, economic populism and state control. Fascist regimes often support a state-managed economy that rejects both free market capitalism and socialism. The MK party has no coherent economic program, but promotes slogans about taking back the economy from white monopoly capital, pledges to empower the people through state control of resources without detailing how this would be done, frames economic elites as foreign agents and enemies of liberation. This mimics fascist corporatist discourse, anti-elite, state-centered, but not democratic or redistributive. So, like MK is a child of the ANC, and what we know about the ANC is that they are corrupt. There's countless. I want to do a video on ANC corruption because I can actually do a series on ANC corruption because it's so widespread. Now, as a child, MK, as a child of the ANC, would obviously bring a lot of this, corruption or ideas of corruption into their own party. They're just waiting. They're like, alligator in the pond waiting for an antelope to approach to capture it. And this is essentially what they are doing. But they are not in power. Like here and there, they may control what we call a council, like a borough, like a district. But so far, there is no proof of massive corruption. It's only their members who committed corruption while they were in ANC governmental positions. But now, for the purpose of this analogy with fascism, we have to give them a clean slate, or else it will be unfair. So they have a partial alignment due to the vagueness and lack of implementation. 4.8, anti-intellectualism and media attacks. Fascist movements often dismiss critical thought and media independence, preferring simplified truths and loyalty narratives. Zuma and MK leaders dismiss academics as clever blacks trying to undermine the people's wisdom. They refer to journalists as agents of propaganda, refuse interviews with critical outlets, preferring controlled platforms or sympathetic forums, instruct followers not to believe Western-funded lies. This hostility to evidence, complexity, and media checks is consistent with fascist and anti-intellectualism. So this is like a pretty pernicious thing to call people is like a clever black, simply because the person has a different opinion to you. Me as well. Like, I've been called a bunch of shitty names by other Afrikaans people because I don't have the same opinion as them. That's how insecure and stupid they are. And I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying that you cannot do a character assassination of someone simply because they have a different opinion. And unfortunately, it happens to a lot of black people in South Africa. They are attacked quite often by fascists like MK when they are saying something that's true and something that's gaining ground. Let's say if a certain tweet or X prompt or whatever you call it, if that thing starts gaining traction, like the trolls go onto this person, they go onto the attack, and now and then they will say something really stupid, and then you can take legal action against them. Like you can charge them with slander, but that becomes very difficult if it's like an anonymous X account. You can figure out someone's identity on the internet, but it's very technical. It's very difficult. You kind of need a hacker to do it. And even the legality of that would be questioned. In the end, you're probably going to figure out it's just a troll doing something, but the MK troll nonetheless. And the MK, they freaking accuse everybody that doesn't, every NGO, every media house that doesn't have the same opinion as them as, like proxies or shills of Western imperialism. AfriForum, the Afrikaner NGO, that is basically the opposite of MK, not in terms of fascism. I did a AfriForum fascist, also the fascist comparison video about AfriForum. Like, they're just like, both. So answer me this: if both of them accuse the courts of being captured, so one comes from like the extreme right, the other one from the extreme left, both are fascists, but they both say the courts are captured. They both say the media are captured. So which one is right? It's impossible. No, it's not impossible to say. It's just it points to the stupidity of the argument that this is true. So with regards to this, the anti-intellectualism and media attacks, strong alignment with fascism. Next, 4.9, legal erosion and parallel legitimacy claims. Fascist movements often undermine the existing legal system by creating parallel structures, courts, militias, political platforms that claim to better represent the people. The MK party leaders have suggested that traditional authorities should override court rulings, claimed that popular support trumps constitutional rulings, implied that the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, is illegitimate if it rules against Zuma. The erosion of legal legitimacy in favor of populist rule mirrors fascist tactics seen in 1930s Europe and modern authoritarian populism like in Hungary under Viktor Orban or Venezuela under Hugo Chavez. Strong alignment. Be very careful of any organization, whether they're fascist or not, who tries to undermine the courts. Any normal society has a good judiciary. Like even countries that's viewed as authoritarian have good courts. So be very wary of organizations that try to destroy the courts. Why would they want to do that? Do you understand? Like, it's to make money. Yeah, it's a lot of fascism is actually about money. It's not even, that's how cynical they are. Like, it's not even about the ideology. Very few fascists, I think, truly believe in their ideology. They just want money. Like, if you look at Nazi Germany as well, all those people were very wealthy people. The Nazi people, the Nazi leaders didn't live in poverty. Definitely not. Okay, so let's give a comparative table for the fascist traits. So I'm first going to read the fascist trait, and then I'll say what's the MK party alignment. So, firstly, myth of betrayal and national rebirth, strong alignment. Cult of leadership, strong alignment. Scapegoating and conspiracies, strong alignment. Anti-liberalism and judicial hostility, strong alignment. Militarism and symbolism, partial, it's rising. Mass mobilization and spectacle, strong. State-controlled economic rhetoric, partial. Anti-intellectualism and media attacks, strong. Legal erosion and parallel legitimacy, strong. So, next up, Chapter 5, Differences and Limitations in the Fascism Analogy. While the MK party displays strong behavior, look, we have to give them in certain areas the benefit of the doubt, because they they are let's say, what many people will call a left-wing party or a woke party or a black party fighting against injustice. So we have to look at it from that angle too. We can't just say, oh, you're like the Nazis. Saying someone is like the Nazis is a very powerful argument that may distort reality. Like, being a Nazi is the ultimate, 10 out of 10 for fascism. So, the differences and limitations in the fascism analogy. While the MK party displays strong behavioral and rhetorical parallels with fascist movements, a precise classification must also acknowledge where its model diverges from classical and contemporary fascism. Oversimplification risks distorting both historical accuracy and present-day context. The MK party has not, 5.1, the MK party has not seized state power. Fascist movements typically seek and often gain full control of state machinery, dismantling democratic institutions and outlawing opposition. As of the 2024 elections, the MK party has not governed nationally, holds no majority in any province, although it may win control in KwaZulu-Natal pending coalition arrangements, and it has not called for the abolition of elections or the parliament. So, while it threatens institutional legitimacy, it does not yet possess state power. So there is no alignment, because they are, it's the same with the EFF, AfriForum, and Solidarity. They don't have state power. They don't control the police. They don't control the army. So this is where they're definitely not fascist. To be a full fascist, to be like Mussolini or Hitler or Pinochet or Galtieri from Argentina, you need to have state power, like full state power. Post-liberation versus post-imperial politics. Classical fascism arose in imperial or post-imperial states. Germany, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. Italy, disillusioned by World War I. The MK party operates in a post-liberation, post-apartheid democracy, where freedom was achieved, but economic justice remains unresolved. Each narrative of betrayal resonates with unfulfilled post-colonial promises rather than wounded imperial pride. This shapes its audience and symbolism differently, even if some tools, such as nationalist emotion, overlap with fascist precedent. So, under this, I have to say that one cannot underestimate the negative impact that apartheid has had on the majority black South African population, who are poorer, who have less wealth, who has less inherited wealth, who has lower education because of wealth, who lives in cyclical poverty, who has been tortured in many cases by the apartheid government, who has been victims of the apartheid government, state apparatus, and the list goes on. A lot of people, and Afrikaner people in particular, don't want to discuss apartheid because I think primarily because of shame and guilt. I feel guilty and ashamed about it. You have to acknowledge this. And the MK party, there's a possibility the MK party would not have existed if apartheid didn't happen. Nothing exists in a vacuum. There's always some causality. If I punch this microphone, there will be consequences. Why am I fat? I'm fat because I love eating. I eat cake at 10 p.m. Okay, so there's a reason for everything. And apartheid South Africa has serious scars from apartheid, and these scars we're a long way off from it healing. So as long as, tying in with this as well, apartheid created a massive disparity between rich and poor. Our Gini coefficient is 0.63, I believe, which is the highest in the world. So as long as you have this massive disparity in wealth, populist parties and fascist parties will always have a gap for growth. Why is there no fascism in Iceland? It's because there is no inequality in Iceland. So for post-liberation versus post-imperial politics, this is contextually distinct. So it's almost like, in favor of the MK, that it is maybe not a fascist party. 5.3, personalist populism versus ideological fascism. While fascism often has a core ideological mythos, for example, Aryan supremacy or Roman revival, the MK party is almost entirely personalist. Its structure and message revolve not only around an enduring ideology, but the defense and restoration of Zuma. The lack of a substantive or stable ideology distinguishes it from ideological rigid fascist parties, suggesting it may collapse without its founding figure. So I strongly agree with this. I believe, as I said, I began this video by saying how smart Jacob Zuma is, or intelligent, or street smarts with intelligence. Like, there's a very strong possibility he created this MK party as a way to stop this prosecutions and the legal process against him. There's a very good chance that he did that. Because remember, the ANC now stands at 40%. There's a good indicator they may fall to 30 to 20% in the next election. If this happens and the MK party has a 15%, probably if the ANC drops more, probably the MK will rise, because it's the same group of voters, it's the same bond. Okay, like an ANC person will never vote for the Freedom Front Plus, which is the Afrikaner party. It doesn't make sense. Even the DA, which is, supposed to be a centrist party or a right-leaning centrist party, that also doesn't make sense for an ANC voter to vote for that party. So the a classical ANC supporter would probably just, pinch their nose and vote MK, because for them, it will be the lesser of two evils, from their perspective. So if that happens, let's say the ANC stands in the next election, it will be 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 2028 maybe, 2029 is the next election. If the ANC then stands on 20% and the MK party has 20% too, then they have a combined number of 40%, then it's not too difficult to build a coalition, and Zuma will then, they may even unite, God knows, like they may unite, and once they're united and they're the governing party, it will be very difficult to prosecute Zuma. It's possible, but it will be difficult. And the party, it's just him. There is no organic groundswell of leaders who came about naturally. So if he goes, and he's very old, he's like, how old is he? He's like almost 80 or something, or 75 or whatever. There's a possibility that they may stop existing. There's even conspiracy theories, or I don't know if it's conspiracy theories, suggestions that some people support the formation of MK because they know under Jacob Zuma, they know the MK will take away votes from the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, which seems to be well, no longer, but who they seem to be a very resilient, growing party. And in this election, their votes went up, but like the support came down, the overall percentage. So there's some conspiracy theory stating that some people actually support the MK, so that because they know the MK will like stop existing in any case eventually, and that will kneecap the EFF in the meantime. So you see, once again, this also plays against the fascism narrative, because it's like, populism and fascism isn't exactly the same. So, for example, if I have to make a video about MAGA being fascist, they will also score, and I will, because I think they're proto-fascist, but there will be points that will basically say they're not as fascist as they are supposed to be. So with personalist populism versus ideological fascism, it's more volatile than ideological. So this basically almost counts that they're not fascist. 5.4, the abstinence of organized paramilitary force so far. Fascist regimes like Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany relied on militias, the black shirts and the SA, to intimidate opponents and enforce loyalty. While the MK party uses militarized imagery, it does not operate an organized paramilitary wing. However, its use of the MK veterans in uniform, especially in public threats and symbolic display may foreshadow movements towards this behavior, especially if its ideological ambitions are blocked or its leader faces renewed legal consequences. So here again, partial with risk of escalation. Once again, I said it in the other videos, if you have a militia, blood red light shining very brightly. And none of these proto-fascist movements in South Africa has a militia. So this is what gives me a lot of hope for South Africa, is that we are still threatened by fascism, like many countries are on earth, in the world at the moment, but there's still a general distance away from it. However, you still need to keep your finger on the pulse just to make sure. 5.5, constitutional participation for now. Despite its attacks on the courts and constitution, the MK party contests elections, files legal appeals, and seeks legislative representation. This legalism, though strategic, places it within the democratic processes. Unlike movements that directly abolish or violently overthrow constitutional rule. That said, compliance is conditional. The party and Zuma have repeatedly signaled that they accept court rulings only when convenient, a precarious attitude with potentially destabilizing implications. So yeah, if you go to, ironically enough, they go to the courts which they attack frequently, but still they do go to the courts and they use lawyers, and they operate within the constitutional framework. So this is conditional legality, which means they use the thing that they despise. They're not fully fascist with regards to this. So the MK party, the conclusion is that it's post-liberation nostalgia with the Jacob Zuma personal grievance and authoritarian populism, and there is some fascist behavior. It is not yet a fully fascist organization. It's proto-fascist because they checked positively in many of our conditions, as stated by Umberto Eco, Stanley Payne, and what's the Zeev guy. But like, we are not there yet. However, I am going to say they're proto-fascist. So with AfriForum, with the Freedom Front Plus, with the EFF and MK, we now have 4 fascist parties, or proto-fascist parties in South Africa. So, and then you can also claim what are they more like? Are they more populist or are they more fascist? This argument will be solved with the course of time. Lastly, references, the boring references, I'm sorry, but it's needed. Academic sources, Robert Paxton, The Anatomy of Fascism, New York, Knopf, 2004. Umberto Eco, Ur-Fascism, New York Review of Books, 1995. Stanley Payne, A History of Fascism, 1914 to 1945. Wisconsin UW Press, 1995. Stanley Johnson, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them, Random House, 2018. Some South African political and media sources. The IEC South Africa, Party Registration Records, 2023. Jacob Zuma and Nkandla rally speeches, December 2023 to February 2024. News 24, Mail and Guardian, SABC and Daily Maverick, 2021 to 2024, reporting on the MK Party, constitutional court cases and Zuma's campaign. The South African Constitutional Court judgment, Zuma versus the Secretary of the Judicial Commission, 2021. The South African Human Rights Campaign and the South African Police Service reports on July 2021 unrest. The SA Constitution, Section 47, disqualification for National Assembly candidacy. And City Press, Zuma's MK Party, a revolution rebranded. So thank you for watching, and don't worry, it seems that for now South Africa is safe. The smaller parties, the proto-fascist parties, only take up about 25% of the votes. That's, well, AfriForum is an NGO, but they will have so little votes if they were to stand in an election. AfriForum is, you can almost discount them. However, they punch well above their weight class in the international media with their treasonous talks with Tucker Carlson. The Freedom Front Plus, although they're less fascists-like, they have a lot of nationalism, and you can classify them with the 25% of proto-fascists. Then the EFF and the MK Party, and then there's 1 or 2 or 3 baby parties that's not even worth mentioning. 75% of South Africa's electorate voted for moderate parties. South Africa is a moderate country. We don't like weird extremist things, as stated by Dr. Frans Cronje on multiple occasions. So I have a lot of hope for the country, and yeah, that's all. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.